What do you do? What kind you obviously do some kind of somatic work, right? What do you
Yeah.
do?
So I grew up doing martial arts.
Aha, got
Yeah.
it.
And then I got into Tai Chi, well, meditation and then Tai Chi, so Buddhism and then Taoism. And then in a retreat,
Really interesting.
I got injured in a retreat, a long retreat. I was like doing a 3-year retreat in the Tibetan tradition.
Okay.
And I was sitting too long. And I do believe that from that, I can't say 100% because I was also doing a lot of hardcore Ashtanga before, but something happened with my leg and it led me into somatics, which was Hannah somatics, Feldenkrais, and Alexander technique as a way to heal myself.
What you said Alexander Feldenkrais, what was the first one?
The Hannah technique, Hannah somatics.
Yeah, Thomas Hanna. Oh
Yeah,
my
Thomas Hannah.
God. I mean, that goes back a long ways. He wrote a back cover blurb to the first book I ever wrote and got published a long, long time ago.
Really?
Yeah, well, I have no idea. I think but it probably around in the mid 80s or something.
Hmm.
Anyway, cool. See,
So,
yeah,
so you knew Tom.
I did not know him, but we knew of each other, and he knew, the kind of stuff that I was interested in, and he was much more out there than I was.
Oh, really?
Oh, certainly at that time, and he was one of the people that we all looked up to. Is that
Oh,
hey,
wow.
this guy is this, you know? So it's interesting. I come out of that era. I was able to study with Ida, right? And get to, interact with her and get we'll get into that. But it was, an era where this whole idea of wait, there's something about awakening body, and everybody's coming at it from a little bit of a different angle, right? But there's something about this, I don't know, awakening of body uh, uh, makes our journey in it a lot more comfortable, and then possibly opens and awakens us to dimensions of experience and where, in our kind of a sleep held body, we just don't have access to that, quality of human awakening, right? And so that was in the air in those days. Now, in my tradition, it had a lot to do with, Ida talked about this thing, the line, right? I mean, is it okay? We jump right
Yeah, jump
in.
right in, please. This is wonderful already.
Ida would talk about the line. And, the mistake that we all made is that we thought of it as a fence post. So we got, kind of very rigid. That don't work. That doesn't work. When we start talking about maybe sitting practices, my, main, uh, you know, I don't know if it's a focus or, I certainly have an intention to call out the Dharma world, wonderful teachings, but it's coming over here in an orientation that is just frozen still, and that didn't work. That really isn't. Uh, it's just not going to be happy. So, Ida had this thing. Oh, and then we all had to, I guess, figure it out for ourselves. Oh, she also had these koans about letting go. And, uh, Bryson, certainly in my experience of her and what I remember, and through the few interactions that I did have with her, that we got down to it, uh, she did not really want to be seen as a physiotherapist or an osteopath, right? And, working on symptoms, as wonderful as that is, right? And as important foundationally as that is. But she had these notions around a human body playing here that would be constantly in motion. It wouldn't be a tent peg at all. It'd be more like, kind of you're really playing with this vertical axis that has, the ability to kind of alter how you experience gravity from, kind of here to whoa, this was better. And her vision definitely was that would not only make you feel good, it would open kind of like another door into a doorway of an altogether different dimension of consciousness. And look, you've done a lot of, meditational and spiritual work. So you have that bug, in you that, it's just like, God, I gotta go in that direction. There's something there. There's something about this. Also, in the time around Ida, it was the human potential movement, right? George Leonard came up with that. He was a character I'd run into, did not know, never really had anything to do with him. But I think I mean, I can speak of myself. What I remember is, I'm in my early 20s and I start kind of, I guess, waking up a bit to realize how fixed I was in some ways, how much I was identified with what was really revealing itself as part of who I am, but it was a persona. It wasn't this essential whatever, that underlies it. And that's what Ida was interested in. She fully, uh, and she alluded to it. She was not a teacher of transformation, evolutionary transformation, but she wanted every one of us to be exploring this stuff and then tell her what was happening. And uh, for me, what it's always been is, the ultimate gesture is this kind of letting go that you can do playing here. You can't let go if you're playing here, right? This ultimate gesture of letting go that oh pops open this other quality or just dimension. And it's not me feeling really good or me being a super me, just kind of it's just wide open. Anyway, what are we going to do here today, and how long do we have to do it?
We got as long as you want. I usually think around an hour, but sometimes things
Okay.
go longer and sometimes things don't go as long. Doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, yeah. Go ahead. You start leading me somewhere. Okay.
Well, I think we've already done a great. That's a great opening.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. 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 You know what? I can also say it's like somatic work. Uh, and I even about the work that I was trained in, Rolfing, and all the schools now that will trace their lineage to that deep, deep hands-on work. It has largely been focused entirely on this one tributary out of Ida's genius, which is the hands-on work, which is what it has to be. We go to school. I want to learn how to do that. I got a trade. I can go back home and maybe earn something approaching a living. But there's this whole other tributary that we've already been speaking of, that Ida was that's really what she wanted. She had I just talked to actually a very cool guy that, if you don't know him, be a good guy to know. His name is Bob Schrei. Is that a name that, yeah. Bob lives currently they've been in Santa Fe, but they're going to be moving. He was an early Rolfer, a Zen practitioner, an early psychedelic explorer, uh, SCHREI, and then he and his wife developed a form of body work that doesn't touch the body. It's like, but they can feel stuff. Hey, I can't. Yeah, but he's an amazing guy, and he's an old timer, and he is sharing that Ida. Oh, I think what he did, he had someone show up for some sessions, some older person who said, well, he said, if you had any work, he said, yeah, I've had about 40 sessions. So who was your Rolfer? Ida.
Oh wow.
So she was an old friend of Ida's, and they got into lots of conversations. And yeah, this is fun to share. I just talked to Bob the other day, and she said that Ida truly saw the work as shamanic work, not as physiotherapeutic work. And the ultimate healing of human being was going to be in the altogether natural, altogether soft, altogether explosive, uh, awakening. In the traditions that you've been, the Asian spiritual traditions. I mean, that's really what we're talking about. There's sort of a natural place, right? And the more we let go into it, it just happens. Uh, even I hadn't heard this before. I knew that Ida felt that we were uh, within, I think it was a healing school of Asclepius from Greece, and that the she came up with this 10 series that some of us look upon with sort of mystical reverence and others of us don't want anything to do with, right? Yeah. And this woman evidently told Bob that Ida had talked to her that, the image, the vision of the 10 series was almost like a channeled, reception, and that it was this kind of work, somatic work, right? Uh, was sort of initiatory for the people then to be able to enter, to open up and enter into the mystery, the mystery schools. And so that's what I've always felt. I still enjoy doing hands-on work. Nothing, no, not the kind of numbers of sessions that I used to do, but I still love to touch bodies, right? But my interest is really in Ida's teachings about here, that here is a practice that she wanted us to take on, that moment to moment, breath to breath, surrendered kind of blip of balancing to the next one. What happens? What happens to human beings? So, in many ways, and I think, I got invited into the Buddhist world to teach. And I've been fortunate, like you, I've had really wonderful teachers from the Vipassana tradition, Zen, the Vajrayana. In my case, I never chose to affiliate myself with any of them. To be honest with you, I didn't really like them. They felt a little stiff and tight. Okay, so I wanted to focus on what I call the denominator common to all of them, which is the sitting posture, which is sitting. And so, mostly, I did a number of organized retreats. And when would this be? The late 70s, the early 80s. And then I just wanted to do the practices on my own. And one of the things that I started off with, I wanted to make sitting more joyous and more user-friendly. Again, the orientation coming over from Asia, it is so stone garden statue of the Buddha posture that just creates tension, pain. We hear stories, people go into Zen Sesshin, Vipassana retreat, and they kind of, love what's happening, but it's also can be horrifically painful to the point of getting crushed. And that was kind of, frankly, my first motivation. And then when some of this stuff started to let go, realizing that, oh, you're really relaxed and playing with balancing, you let go at the onset of inhalation. It's like a wave moving through a body of water. It's really, really easy until something deep comes up, and then you deal with that. But you just keep moving and moving. Uh, so, it was that coming up for me. And then I do a lot of writing. So I wrote about that. And that's what got a character like me invited into the Dharma world. And so it's really interesting, Bryce, and it's taking our somatics vision directly into the world of sitting meditation practice. Not just sort of sitting for a little bit, oh, I feel a little calmer, but deep practice, the kind that you've really good on you, man, that you've immersed yourself in. Uh, so it is, like I say, it's this other tributary out of her genius that's mostly, it ain't out there much. Bob talks about it, I talk about it. It's a guy from the institute named Ray McCall. I know, a wonderful guy. He still talks about it, but mostly the orientation is to the physiotherapeutic. Uh, that's what most somatics work is, right? Physiotherapeutic, some somatics work is more psychotherapeutic, right? But, all the same, there's the mix. Uh, I was talking about something different. And from her perspective, again, like the 10 series, I just said it was initiation for the mystery schools. For me, that's the amount of work that someone needs to start playing with some of these practices of just letting go within what might be called a dance of balancing. That's kind of what sitting practice has become for me at this point. Very, very, very motile, very let go, kind of, uh, uh, everything's sort of moving around when we really let go. That's the first source of motion. So yeah, this is kind of fun because this has come to me recently. It takes a long time to get this stuff, right? I always used to talk, because I always remembered and I loved it as a kid, I'd balance a broom upside down on my hand, right? Remember doing that? It's so cool. And then there's that moment, right? And so I always used to talk about that in the teaching that I did, that there is this place, it's like, ah, that, there it is. So I now uh, apologize because that is the booby prize. Because you can get rigid here. The book says to sit with the spine erect and upright. He doesn't then talk about why, because you can let go. So in most schools, a lot of the schools in Southeast Asia, I don't know what your experience was. And, the opening of the Satipatthana Sutta, sit with the spine erect and upright. Well, they have this posture of collapse. These are people that revere that sutta. Some of the Japanese schools are very upright, but my sense is they're also very rigid. Okay. So, uh, it, having, this initial work, it's enough for you to start exploring this place where you can let go. One of my lines I always came up with, remember Yoda from Star Wars? The wise, cool little old whatever he was, right? He would say something like, "Okay, young Skywalker, there is no balance. There's only balancing." And what I got from that is that this is what occurs when you're balancing the broom upside down in your hand, right? It isn't that. So I start a lot in sitting bones that for most meditators might as well be tent pegs, cemented into the cushion. There's that kind of, it's interesting. It's kind of this heavy relaxation or heavy dropping of weight, often in conjunction with the exhalation, that just kind of gets you set. And to me, that's not relaxed. I'm interested in more of a dynamic relaxation that comes about through first of all, there might just be this kind of thing back and forth. The body just starts moving. There's things like Indonesian latahan. The people are just letting go. Or I think of the continuum practices of Emily Conrad. A lot of people are starting to get, uh, we're given permission to just let the body start going. So there's that. And then, and this goes back to Ida, and this goes to the culminating instruction on breathing by the Buddha. Okay, in that opening to the Satipatthana Sutta, uh, and okay, we'll get into this in a second. He says, as you breathe in through the whole body. It starts off, we're so unconscious. Let's just become aware of breathing. Oh, okay. Oh, when you're lost in thought, there's virtually no air coming in or out. You're sniffing at best to keep the body alive. The beauty of, for me, like Anapana, mindfulness practices, you start paying attention and breath does start becoming more regular and smooth, which will again have a different physiological effect on body. Okay, then the place you're lost in thought and hardly breathing, that has a physiological effect on body. You're a martial arts guy, right? I know you understand this. And the physiology that then will manifest through the what we call consciousness. So the it also says when you do that, do it at the front of your body. So mostly it's concentrating on the nostrils or belly wall, or but it's focusing on breath. It's focusing on breath, just remaining aware of breath. It's, to me, this is classical mindfulness. And it appears to me that the majority of schools that work with breath in the Dharma world, they begin and end with that instruction. Hey, it's wonderful. Mind becomes calmer. You become more aware. You become clearer, right? That's not where the instructions end. So it's like, it's then I'll get a little bit more refined in your awareness of the differentiation between one breath to the next. And finally, in the altogether remarkable statement, as you breathe in through the whole body. As you breathe out through the whole body. And you know what I've been getting to lately? I mean, this is, Buddha starts out as sort of a mindfulness psychology teacher. Okay, boys and girls, let's just start, there's this breath. And I know, and we're all lost in thought. We have no awareness of it, right? We don't have awareness of body either. So let's just start off by bringing it to awareness. Classical mindfulness. I'm going to concentrate my mind on the breath, and it is, and it's good. And over time, or front belly wall. I feel really fortunate that my first retreat was about front belly wall rather than the nostrils, because at least you're dropping down, out of this, right? When he gets to, as you breathe in through your whole body, it's a somatic practice. All it is a somatic practice. And the word awareness does not, what we conventionally associate with what we conventionally refer to as mind isn't even mentioned. It's no, just do this practice, figure it out. How can you do that in a way that you just let go rather than trying to force? Because the other great somatic guy that I resonate with comes from the Tibetan Mahamudra tradition, Tilopa. And he says, it doesn't have anything to do with the mind, people. It's just do nothing, just evoke an awakened, relaxation, like an awakened shimmer, really, through the body. And the only way that happens is if you relax. You can't force it to happen. Just letting go, relaxing. And, my sense of the Buddha's culminating instruction, you have to awaken the body. How could you breathe through it if you can't even feel it, right? If you're not aware of its felt presence, the soma, right? And then the second one, how to breathe through the whole body. Well, and here again, I go right to Ida in my class. And I don't think, I never heard her use the word spiritual. For her, it was all about evolutionary energies awakening through playing here, this awakening of sensation, the shimmer. When it got to the breath, there are two statements, one from my class and one a guy in a class earlier than me shared. That how will that breath breathe through the awakened, being the awakened body? She said, the force of breath will cause click, 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 transmitted motions at every joint in the body throughout the entire thing, every cycle of inhalation and exhalation. And she said that that would include joints in the body, sutures in the skull, and joints between the small bones and the feet. But it would be that uh, open. The really beautiful statement of hers that for me is one of the major go-to koans that I use with the people, the people that were doing a lot of these sitting practices, exploring this wildly somatic approach to sitting. What is it about? It's about sitting, and every moment just surrendering, letting go. Ida said these are, and this one was word for word. Body. In other words, this what we feel, right? It's also, well, what is body? It's a solid physical thing, but it's also like this feeling, presence that inhabits it, right? Body is something wrapped around a breath, like mummies are wrapped. Oh, but here she says, no, let those wraps flow freely, like silk scarves.
That's nice.
Isn't that beautiful? I mean, that's uh, as you breathe in through the whole body. And then there's Rumi, who says, bringing breath to life, which is what we're talking about here, right? It's just this letting go for all the holding still, and then it's just like a wave moving through a body of water. Bringing breath to life is the essence of every true path of spiritual awakening. Something like that. You know what else? What else he said? I got into Rumi in a big way. He's another very deeply body oriented. The awakening is an awakening through the body. It's an awakening. Most of us, we just don't feel anything. We're locked in the minds and we just don't feel it. And Rumi goes on to say it's bringing breath to life is also the cure for disease. Well, that's a pretty big statement, but think about that. And one thing I think of like for even just a physical thing like frozen shoulder. It, as the muscles clench and the fascia loses its plasticity, uh, it has to be harder for blood and lymph to get through that area of the body, right? And then I think, oh, bring breath to life. Oh, I think of these chronic places of tension and holding like black holes. They've they've sucked the shimmer and the motion. Right, you're right out of that. Then another place, Rumi says, let every breath you take uh, cleanse the soul. But for Rumi, soul is awakened body, is body. It's soma. Cleanse the soul of all its grief and pain so you can continue to glow brightly. So this is the level of my peculiar interest that got well, it led me to Ida, and then got born out of her. I feel very fortunate. Got born out of being exposed to her.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't know. So I know a little. I've read as much as I can. I've interviewed a few different people, but obviously she was no longer around when I came to. So it's really interesting to hear you talk of her like this because I've heard this from other people. This aspect of her, she does hold a kind of mystical place. Even Tom Hanna studied with her and took a lot of ideas from her.
Really? Yeah, there was a lot of exchange with Moishe Feldenkrais and Ida and Tom Hanna. Then Alexander started coming on the scene. Then there were all the Reichians, and and then there were the Gestalt people that were very physical. It was all about feeling. Well, what's the feeling? It's coming out of the body, right?
I think it's a perfect counterpart to at least, like, and this has sort of been something I've explored on the show, the way we receive Dharma and what Dharma actually was, the place it actually held in the East versus how a Western mind has received it. Because it does seem to be more body oriented coming from the West, and we're a very disembodied culture.
Yeah. Yeah. I have I've toyed with a vision about that. And here's one, I'm not a scholar
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in a way, but I do know that every time Dharma has migrated to a new territory, it
Right,
doesn't just go in and impose the way it was done at the old
right, right.
territory. Maybe it does in the beginning, but ultimately it morphs as it interacts with the culture of the new territory that it's migrated into. I think of a couple of instances in particular. I just have, it's just I have no knowledge that anything is like this, but here's my romantic vision that the very gentle Chinese monks, right? They get on the boat and they go over to Japan and they meet the samurai, you know, and they don't say, hey, guys, just chill. Oh, it's like a little, like maybe a lot. No, Zen becomes fierce, right? And then I think it was out of the Shaivite Tantric community in northern India that a couple of the guys climbed the Himalayas onto the Tibetan plateau. Indigenous Bampo people with very, very old traditions, and it's shamanistic and it's animistic. And they do not go up there and say, okay, you beautiful people, time to drop your superstitions. No, Tibetan, suddenly the Vajrayana has wrathful and peaceful deities. I've thought I could, there was no internet, so there's no immediate exchange of ideas, but imagine like a 15th century monk in Cambodia, Burma, wherever, and they're doing the practice that have been taught down. If they somehow had gotten wind or heard of what was going on up in Tibet in the name of the Buddha, that would be so. I feel really, really strongly that now the Dharma coming over here, what I feel, folks like you or me, at our best, I, I'd like to believe one of my best contributions were seeding foundations for what will be a uniquely Western Dharma that will be as different from what's done in Burma as it is from Japan, as it is from Tibet. And the first one, I mean, it's interesting. With very few exceptions, I feel the orientation of most of the Dharma that's coming over here that has gotten out of touch. That most of it is this focus on what we call consciousness or mind, and body again is just along for the ride. And Buddha means awakening. For me, what the awakening has to be is, well, I don't know where all these tingling shimmers have been hiding out and where they come from when I just say, oh yeah, I can soften and relax, and all of a sudden there's that they're really waking up. And to me, it's this is, lost in thought. Or just really involved. I call it the virtual reality headset.
Yeah, that's right. I think.
It's just our, this mind, it's filtering, it's doing stuff. And that is that is the speaker of all that linguistic stuff.
Hmm.
Right? That, that it causes too much pain. And I actually believe it causes way too much pain in Zen, in Vipassana, and the Vajrayana, as it would over here. So I do see, I mean, I would love for the traditions the phrase I use is coming over here, we need to become more user friendly,
Hmm.
our bodies.
Yeah.
Or will I do think it will just devolve into a kind of elitist irrelevancy, because what good card-carrying Westerner in his or her right mind is going to, oh yeah, I want to go into that Zen sesshin. I hear it's just really painful. I'm going to hang out there it just isn't going to happen. I came across Sasaki Roshi, I mean, an incredible mountain of a controversial guy, but a mountain of Zen discourses in a 7-day retreat many, many years ago. And one day was questions and answers. And the first question was, Roshi, why does Zazen have to be so painful? And his answer was, well, pain in Zazen is a luxury. And I went, bullshit. Pain, and it just, it, it isn't. It,
Hmm.
it, it it just is not. And it will, drive people away that that we want to create, my vision for who the Dharma teachers are going to be, that there'll be people that have worked with, traditional sitting practices, but they are going to be people that have come out of the somatics movements.
Mm.
I feel that really strongly because, as you're saying, we're so out of touch. Yeah, the Dharma that's coming over here is out of touch and is imposing this frozen stillness
Hmm.
on us, but it's still new. Someone like you and someone like me were grateful for these teachings showed up, but then we aren't so enmeshed over generations and generations and generations and generations of practitioners that we still don't have we don't have the wherewithal to say, yeah, there's something great about here, but doing this, but wait a minute, something needs to change in a big way about what sitting is. As I say, to me, the sitting is about sitting. That's the awakening. The awakening is going to come through the dynamic relaxation is going to be very motile. Because as soon as I hold still, right back in the mind, playing with balance, surrendering to breath,
Mhm.
right up through the cranium.
Mhm.
Uh, I mean, it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
We like it there. Liberation is another one. Awakening, well, what's so awakened? We don't feel the sensations.
Mhm.
Gang, let's wake them up, right? Liberation, which of course is totally resonate with. We think of a liberation of something, right?
Mhm.
For me, the primary uh, aspect of my being that I'm interested in liberating, I want to liberate breath from its imprisonment in a necessarily inert, held, uh, tense tissue. And that's what Ida's saying. I want to liberate the breath from mummy wraps
Mhm.
because that's the relaxation.
And how can we go a little deeper on that? Like, can you explain what you mean by that? Like, go
Yeah.
like give that a minute.
Oh, yeah. Um, okay. Okay, let's go back to Lopa. That it's all about a relaxed awakening that occurs through the body. And he's the closest that I've grabbed, and come across that I get that. That's what he's talking about. Do nothing with the body but relax. Become a hollow bamboo. Breath just moves through. There's no blockage, free flow of this current of the life force. Okay. So for that to happen, you can't be sitting like a fence post because that's just nothing's going to move through that.
It's gonna
So
be the ability of the breath to embody the whole being, like Buddha was saying, to let breathe from every part of
absolutely,
the body.
absolutely, the Buddha says the culminating instruction that again, as I say, with very few exceptions, virtually no one in the Dharma world goes near. That's why he's talking from now a somatic perspective, and that's why characters like us, see us being the Dharma teachers, that he's suddenly talking like a great somatic therapist. He's saying, okay, gang, okay, that's fantastic. It's so much smoother, you're aware of your breath, but you're still focusing on it kind of with your mind. Now, let go through your body and figure out how you can breathe through your whole body. What? Right? And so Bryson, every one of our kids that have been through a 10th grade anatomy class knows that you don't breathe through the whole body. You breathe through your nose and your mouth, in and out, and the lungs and oxygen. That is relatively recently acquired knowledge. Okay, just in the latter part of the 18th century. And I read a really fascinating book. I think this was before I did a book called Breathing Through the Whole Body, that it was called A History of Breathing Physiology. And it was all these different people throughout history that what they thought breath was for, right? And the most common one was that it's here to cool the heat of the heart. And sometimes I know in Vipassana practices that focus on nostrils, you're just feeling it, kind of cool. Yeah, it comes out a little warm. That makes some sense if that's what it's doing, right? Uh, but obviously the Buddha is talking about something very, very different, right? If you know anything about oxygen, Emanuel Swedenborg, is that a name that you know at all?
No, you're giving me
He's
all these new names today. It's good. I'm wonderful.
so Ida was really into Emanuel Swedenborg. Is he like an 18th century Swedish mystic who she went on and on about him that the citizens saw that Swedenborg was operating in some kind of higher consciousness, that he was something was different, totally natural, right? But beautiful and different. Swedenborg, uh, well, certainly, and again, I'm not a student of Swedenborg. I plead guilty. I like cherry picking, the teachings that work for me. Swedenborg attributed a lot of the shift in awakening to him to his belief that the ultimate purpose of breath was to keep the spine in constant motion. Most of us as meditators, we sit and the spine might as well be a column from a Roman or Greek temple. Oh my God, there's a letting go. You can't try to force it, but there is this almost like the swoony place of letting go. I talked earlier that a lot of Dharma is, oh, just relax on the exhalation. To me, that just kind of sinks you lower and lower into an often hypotonic condition. Although it's cool, you can get really chill. Yeah. I talk about letting go at the onset of inhalation. And what I mean by that, it's just like free falling. But you know what it also is? It's a complete surrender of the weight of your body to the field of gravity.
Mm.
I'm not trying to hold myself up. It's just letting it go, letting it go. And lo and behold, the spine starts undulating, right? As I said, there's this quality of motion. You're just playing with the upside down broom. This is Latahan or Emily Conrad. And then then here's the Buddha's culminating instruction. I says, do this, because that is going to radically alter, for starters, the physiology of the body, this kind of altogether natural breath, right? The body, it really enhances the awakening. And again, that physiology creates, oh my God, this is a totally different condition of consciousness. I call it great wide open places. All of our traditions, the wonderful traditions have different names for that. Rumi calls it the consciousness of union. Uh, uh, you've done a lot of martial arts and Dharma. They talk about about this awakening. Uh, I want our Western Dharma to help people to really be able to dynamically relax into it. Because that to me is, it opens the doorway then to the healing and the awakening. Let every breath you take cleanse the body, the entire soul, every uh, little cell of it, of all its grief and pain, right? It's like breath is body worker. You just breathe in and it touches in and says, okay, let go. You can relax it. So the system continues to burn bright, and here we are right back at the doorstep of somatics.
Yeah. I, 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 as I'm listening, and I feel like I've sort of thought about this. I have thought about this quite a bit on my own as well. So you bring up this teaching of the Buddha and this teaching of Tilopa,
Mhm.
and even you're even saying something similar, like, well, breath is body work. So that
Yeah.
perhaps there's this idea of, like, when we encounter the Dharma or we encounter body work or exercise, it's so, like, kind of singular, or like in the thoughts, which we could also sort of call egoistic, that as the practice develops and that begins to break down, the awareness becomes more wide open. And it's only through this wide open awareness that we can encompass the body and breathe through the whole body simultaneously.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
It's almost like a higher
Yeah.
practice.
Interesting. It's like a what?
It's like a more advanced practice, almost like something, you know what I mean? Through this struggle with the small sense of self,
Yeah.
finally there's kind of like a breakthrough where you relax and
Right. So here's a couple of things maybe to share.
just a thought.
Yeah, to share. No, it's
Yeah.
really interesting. When I talk about breath as body worker, I mean, playing in these upright places that allow you to let go and soften, and it's almost like the breath. You can feel it filling up, or did I just say transmitted motion through the whole body, almost like you're filling up a balloon, right? And inevitably, what we find is that, oh, I can feel it opening out here, but you're not so much. Now that's invaluable information, and it's not as though I'm wanting to try to heal this, so it's going to be like this, but oh, I can kind of almost, and it's so non-aggressive. You know, I hate to try to imply there's like deep rolfing or something with the breath from the inside out rather than a body worker's hands from the outside in, right? But oh, I can almost feel I like so I'll go through my body. And this is uh, one of the amazing things out of Ubakin or Goenka Vipassana, right? But for me, it's not just putting my awareness in a part of the body and observing what's there. I call it sending out invitations to every part of the body to wake up. And as soon as it's accepted my invitation, greet it with this gesture of letting go, relaxing, right? Oh, and so inevitably, yeah, yeah, nice. Yeah, it's fun, right? And you can feel that. What you also then become very aware of is where that isn't happening in the body. Where the pain, I often say the pain, the holding, there's no uh, somatic therapist or guru anywhere close to being as precisely helpful to you of where exactly it is you need to, I never knew I could start now. So there is that notion of, and as I say, it gets very motile. If I'm sitting like this, that can't happen. It's really this kind of, this kind of thing. To me, like I
You look
say,
like practicing qigong.
well, kind of spontaneous
But I mean,
qigong.
spontaneous qigong. You have the same sensibility.
Okay, two things. One, I want to comment on that and then get back to the idea of the mind
Yeah, yeah.
uh, ending. You know, the the letting go occurred to me initially standing. Okay. And I hadn't studied with Ida yet. I'd been getting Rolfed. And people say, well, Will, you're a body guy. You came out of your mother's tummy. No, not even close. I was kind of an artsy nerd. That's what I came, and so getting this awakening of the body was very, very powerful. So I'm out in a garden in afternoon and speaking truth. I know I'd smoked a joint, and oh, I'm standing there. Oh my God! And there my body starts. Oh, this is what Ida Rolf must be talking about. Okay, the energies just wildly come open, and then I see these energies are causing movement in my body that I am not initiating. That's where a lot of it came out of, and so I brought that and then into into the sitting. So uh, I in the work that I do with people that are exploring these practices, eventually sooner or later we spend a lot of time paying attention to the cranium. And I mean, this is, I mean, it's you and I know that the cranium is the part of the body, right? But a lot of people that in locked in the consciousness that passes as normal. The head's up here. I'm in my mind. The body's down there, right? So I start exploring a thought, okay? And the first thing that I like to, because so much of the time there's this ticker tape parade, right? Of random and unbidden thought. Some of it is conscious and creative, but so much of the time it's just a thing going on. So, okay, first of all, I want to get coordinates of where that exists in space. So it's somewhere in here. And then I start paying attention. Uh, and this is a guarantee. What accompanies lost in thought is a grabbing in the cranium. Sometimes it's right in the eyes. Certainly the eyes are involved with opening to visual field, right? And then there's a lot on the side of the cranium and right in the beginning going, there's thought, oh, there's that holding lateral to it, maybe relax that, and the plug's pulled. And the plug is pulled on that, you know, conventional conscious, hey, if you don't have any thoughts going through, where am I who am the speaker of those thoughts? Right. And that to me is when we start opening into these alternate dimensions that, you know, I guess I was born this way, right? You were born this way. So this isn't for everybody. So, you know, most people, honestly, what they want from us as somatic practitioners is let's just relieve some of this, ooh, this heaviness, this pain, or oh, I hurt myself here, or I've got this emotional holding or withholding. Can you help me? And then just to go about their lives. It's wonderful, wonderful. Others of us, and I don't know why. I've just had that bug in that there's you know, one of my most important friends in my 20s, our bond was what would authentic human being be? What would you know how what has to happen for this to be more authentic? And I'm just free associating here, but going back into my 20s, what I became aware of is that the personas that I thought I was, it's part of who we all are. Nothing, something terrible, but oh no, they're just out here, and there's something deeper that includes but is not limited to them, right? And this to me, as far as I can tell, has to be just the awakened, whatever this thing is, right? So yeah, a lot of it I really love. Uh, oh, I love doing Ida's koan. Body is something wrapped around a breath. Let the wraps flow freely like silk scarves. I love doing that and taking it all the way up through my cranium. So much, when I'm here as Will, there has to be a bit of grabbing, okay? For yeah, for it's like a camera lens. You dial, oh, I got to dial into this camera lens of consciousness, right? And then, oh my, when I just let everything go, different setting, different consciousness, very different. The other thing that I've seen, I get, I'm older now, right? And so the striving and the really wanting to be kind of super me isn't, you start seeing that that's kind of a detour. And, I do see that with a lot of, yeah, we think it's, well, I want to heal myself and then I'm going to be cool, man. And that, you've done so much work, that's not it. One of my lines is that any kind of self-aggrandizement, like, well, I've attained, there's so much holding in that, right? That self-aggrandizement, it is to the Dharma what kryptonite is to Superman. It's going to be a detour again. It's interesting talking to you. You know that I love talking to people that have already put somatics and the Dharma together and know that each maybe holds a missing key to the other's form of inquiry. And both ways. I look at the world of somatic therapy, and uh, I mean, if people, yeah, keep working with presence, and then also open up to what are these possibilities that the Dharma is talking about. Oh, it's yeah, that's sort of where that work could be going. Well, again, I like the idea of the two of them together.
Yeah, I agree. I really like the idea that there was already somatics over from these traditions, but this word's not there. So we might miss it. And I love that you talked Naropa or Talopa, because this is very much a Himalayan yogic tradition where they're working with the channels and the energies, much like Chinese meridian practice.
Exactly.
There was a
Exactly.
practitioner, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He passed away in the 80s. His name was Lama Yeshe. He he was a Mahamudra practitioner too, doing these particular practices. And he says, I mean, this is common, but his particular teachings, the first time I had heard it actually, was that you want to imagine your body's a balloon when you sit down to meditate. You
Oh,
fill it.
really?
Yes,
Oh, really?
and then he said you want to breathe through all your pores.
Oh God, I love it. I mean, that's essentially what what we're
Yeah.
talking about. No,
Yeah.
I didn't know
So
that.
so you came
And
to the
we
same.
talked about this.
Yeah, that's right.
And to me, what's so gorgeous about that breath, look, we start from where we are. I sit down, I'm out of bed, and I'm kind of stiff and cranky, and I start practice, but then whoa, it just, this gradual awakening. And over the course of time, all of a sudden it just happens through awakening, letting go. Letting go of thinking we've got to sit like this, and that we're gonna make our life on the cushion a joyous dance, right? And sometimes it can actually get, fairly gesticulatory, but often it's kind of subtle. It's kind of a subtle uh, sort of thing, but it's very, very deeply somatic. Here's another one I thought of. The image of the thousand-armed Avalokiteshvara? Yeah, I mean, come on, that's weird stuff, right? So I think that is a static image of a time lapse depiction of a breathing practice. I mean, it doesn't necessarily go like that, but for me, the exhale.
Ah, I see. That's interesting.
And, I'll do that with students. It's fabulous. And again, you just let go and, the system awakens. Awakens. We're the somatics guys. We're about awakening. I don't think anymore that enlightenment is some kind of, oh, I've been able to pop into some abstruse corner of mind that I didn't even know existed. I honestly think it's just, whoa, that's what the Buddha says. Do a somatic practice. It has nothing to do with the mind. Tilopa, just relax the body. This is not mental focus and concentration. Look at it. The mindfulness is one of the good news. The proliferation is one of the good news stories on our planet right now. The shadow side is that's foundational. That's first level of instruction. Remain aware. Yeah, you want that. So then it's the awakening in the body that breathes through the whole thing. Buddha, I, Gautama Buddha was a great somatic therapist.
I'm with you. I think so too.
But it's a somatic practice. It has nothing to do with, oh, let's see, I'm going to examine the contents of my mind and I'm going to calm out the contents. So it has nothing to do with that anymore. And it's just altering the physiology.
Yeah. But as you said, as Dharma goes from place to place to place, it changes.
Changes.
We're getting these very ancient, sophisticated traditions, and we're like, what's happening here? So the Dharma does have this ability, this wonderful ability to meet you where you are, just like the somatic practices of massages of, okay, I'm sore, I'm this, so okay,
Yeah.
we'll deal with
Yeah.
that. And then as
Yeah.
we're a little longer and we start to develop some patience, we'll be able to start to open up a little bit, but you got to stick around for that bit.
Yeah, I think the somatics movement is mostly focused on the healing of the physical body, which is amazing, right? But still doesn't get that now. Why is that? It's initiation work for letting go
Hmm.
into this bigger thing. If I a criticism, I guess, of the orientation towards sitting coming over from Asia, we're Buddhists. We're on the path of enlightenment, and it's all about the image with. It's like jumping up over the rungs of the ladder without awakening it and opening it in the only place that awakening and opening can occur, the human body,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. And maybe we asked the question because like we start out with a very, especially in the West, we start out with, I'm generalizing, but generally speaking, in our education system, we start out with an idea of the body as some sort of mechanical structure.
Right.
And again, the longer we stick around and we start to ask, well, what is the body? That begins to kind of fall apart and new dimensions begin to open up to us. But it is this conversation between consciousness and the body that takes us, it's a very organic, natural place. We don't have to impose on it. We'll just begin to discover.
Yeah, well, to me, it's about awakening this natural aliveness, just letting it be here as it is. Rather, it's interesting too. I think about, the cranium with all the letting go here in Zen. One of their famous koans is, "What was your original face before you were born?" And what I get from that is, what was this, utterly relaxed well-being? Let's just even talk about cranium, the face before I took possession of it, and became this person or this person or or whatever. And so we have oh my God, we have the great good fortune of the wisdom teachings coming over here. They haven't been over here in North America much up until until I was kind of a teenager, right? Then there's the 60s that starts that starts happening. So such gratitude for that. But I just do feel strongly. One of the things I think we as Westerners can give back to the Dharma, thank you very much, and here's something for you back, is to make their practice way more user friendly. So it's not, it just isn't for long hours. And to me, that holding uh, virtually guarantees that the awakening isn't going to occur because we're frozen. Hucklean talks about, he says, just like ice and water, just melt the ice,
Oh yeah, sure.
you know?
That's famous.
Um, so I'll throw a couple of other things in at you. So partly, and we'll see how people take this. Um, I look back on my life, and for me, I can cite two major. The Dharma comes in. Well, what's going on in the culture? What's come into this culture?
Mm.
For me, two major homegrown, explosively spiritual happenings that have occurred. And one to me is the rave movement.
Mm.
Oh my God, we just saw a video on social media, my wife's social media this morning, and I swear it's like a 2-year-old kid who's just out there. You know, that wasn't me when I was that age. I mean, this happened. Our young adults or older adults are giving ourselves permission to move, and that really factors into what I'm up to. The other that I think is going to have to be explored, and I think there might be two somatic legs of this. Uh, Come on, the other major thing that's happened in our lifetime is the advent and availability of psychedelics, of entheogens, anything from cannabis to psilocybin to to LSD, and there have been no protocols. The prohibition meant there were no protocols. Uh, my personal experience using small amounts of those substances for these body awakening, breath liberating practices, for some of us, they can work. Okay. For the old practices of trying to fixate and focus the mind, they do not work at all. In the teaching that I do, I would say half of my students are what I call pure land. And these, yeah, I mean, their diets are pure and it's no caffeine and it's no alcohol and certainly no substances and they're very light and clear, right? And they do that because that's what works for them. The other half is what I call ganja sangha.
Lifting that.
Yeah, and these are people for whom very small amounts of cannabis support, help them, uh, with these very body awakening, breath liberating practices. And again, they do that because it works for them. What they're doing is not right and this wrong, and what they're doing is not right and this wrong. So I do because this is our culture now, and I kind of see this because there are, I can't just commit to this or commit to that because I see both are happening and it's out there. Every single retreat I ever did when I was invited to a Buddhist center, I'd have at least one, often more than that. People kind of tearfully, Mr. Johnson, could I, could I talk to you privately for a moment, sir? And these are people for whom uh, these entheogenic substances and maybe even in well, they weren't doing it much in the context of sitting practice because it was so disallowed, right? But they said, and what's happening, that there's something here and we're feeling hemmed in, and our sanghas don't like it. Our sanghas are kind of they're feeling judged and shamed and blamed and a little ostracized. And they love the Dharma, but it's so painful for them. And so I took them aside. I said, look, and I do believe this is an observation that the current attitude of the spiritual worlds, uh, the current spiritual world's attitude towards things like cannabis, psilocybin, MDMA, LSD, right? Isn't a heck of a lot different from the 1950s straight world's attitudes towards homosexuality. Oh, something wrong, shunning, shaming, oh, bad person, right? And, we've all, evolved uh, beyond that. And, I do see that there is going to be, and I'm in touch with, fellow teachers who, we're all open to this notion that it has to be small amounts because these practices are so strong. If you take really large amounts of psychedelics, you're just on your back tripping. I want the awakening of the body, but to be able to keep sitting.
You're doing it with a purpose. I mean, there's a long tradition of this from India and the Himalayas going into Tibet and
Yes.
China of these
Or
alchemical
Shiva.
practices.
Shiva.
Yeah, this is not new to Dharma. This has been around for a long time. I mean, even the early Buddhists, the beats and stuff were even playing around with these ideas right off the bat in the 50s.
But establishment Dharma
Yeah,
coming over from Asia.
sure, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember there was a very interesting book years ago. It's a gorgeous book, a lot of beautiful art called Zigzag Zen.
Oh, yes,
And it
I
was,
know.
that book and it's interviews with Buddhist teachers about LSD. And I know one of these guys, the
Mm,
guy that wrote it opens with the plant eating sutra. Oh, this is this fellow Bob Schrei that I mentioned. He's a dear,
mm.
wonderful friend of mine. He wrote that. He was, I think, one of these people in Chicago. They would take large doses of LSD and sit zazen for a lot of hours. I don't know how they did it. That me, I'm just flat over on my back, right? Then there were most of the American teachers, yeah, it was very important, but no, I just do Dharma now.
Yeah,
And there are the Asian teachers who've never experienced these substances saying, oh no, very bad.
yeah. I mean, coming out of Japan, that makes sense. I think you have more luck with India and Tibet.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
The
probably Southeast
Vajra,
Asia.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Vajrayana was always a out there doing their own thing, dreadlocks, sadhus, and stuff like this, living on the outskirts, doing their own thing.
This is Shiva.
It's very
This is,
interesting tradition.
the legends down to this day of Shiva. And I'm, as one of the three big gods of Hinduism. I think he was a real guy that then a lot of mythic dazzle got overlaid on, like he would sit for eons in meditation and come back and cut off his kid's head because he was jealous. Or anyway, that the stories down to this day in India is that Shiva and Parvati would drink bhang. It's this drink that in India, a lot of people still enjoy. It has some cannabis in it, right? And the stories down to this day is that Shiva would stand up, his energies would awaken in his body would start spontaneously moving, out of which he brings the body-oriented practices of yoga and dance to the planet. And the story I told you that I was down in the garden in a very small, reflective way, that's exactly what happened. I talked to young people in their 20s and 30s who at like 3 o'clock at a rave and their bodies can't move. Uh, and they've been fueled, often it's MDMA that they enjoy. And they're telling me what went on. It's bona fide awakenings. So I want the Dharma here in the West that we're going to keep. It's about you don't say no to any avenue of exploration that's about healing, that's about going inside, that's about exploring.
Yeah. What did Ida have an opinion on any of this? Because she would have been around at this time. And
So,
and then one other thing with Ida, you had mentioned the center line. If I'd like to further, if you could,
okay,
I don't know more.
here's what I remember around Ida. Those of us that were interested in this, I remember there was this one guy, he was a Jesuit, or he'd been a Jesuit, and he got out.
Oh,
He was a
Don
devil.
Hamlin,
Oh no, I'm talking about another guy, but Don, of
another
course,
Jesuit.
is one of, and Don is an old friend, and yeah. So there were two brothers actually. I think they might have been from Ohio or something. They'd been Jesuits, and this one guy, he was almost like a devotee now of Ida. And he over lunch, he came into the class one day, and I remember him talking about. He said, "Well, exploring this stuff that Ida's talking about, the line," he said, "I've had moments of awakenings that feel so much closer to what I know Christ consciousness is than anything I experienced in the Jesuits." So we're, as good uh, as that was. So I remember being so there were some of us exploring this. And the interesting thing about this, Bryce, and talk to Bob about this, the jury is still out for me. Most of, most of the people who are having the really big openings into this altogether natural, whatever dimension you want to call it, this big awakening, we're doing it with some kind of entheogen as a catalyst. So that maybe that the awakening through the line, it could be a Shiva practice, that these body awakening sacraments are helpful for. But those of us that were exploring this, we were all using those substances. You'd be in class with Ida 4 days a week, so intense and trying to get everything. And then 3-day weekend, you're out there in nature playing this stuff. She wanted to hear about it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, yeah, she did. But what I'm getting to, my sense is she didn't really want to hear about the drugs
Yeah.
so much. I mean, Ida was this strange genius, but old school girl.
Yeah.
So, and it was mostly, hey, look it was unspoken in those days. You did not speak openly about, hey, everybody, I've there's a an explosive line practice that I want to teach you about, and we'll smoke pot, and we'll do psilocybin, we'll do LSD. You'd be in jail.
Well, that's that's confusing because of the legality here. It's like maybe people want to talk or just, but it's closed off. So it's a confusing topic.
It is. It is. It totally is. And uh, but I mean, the other thing you're talking about, Ida's notion of the of the line. You know, the axis of verticality, it does not exist. Uh, there's no formal thing, and there, you know, we're not trying to get our spine straight or anything. It's just, I often talk about the axis of verticality as like our very closest imaginary friend. Because there's, oh, when I start playing with it a little bit, and again, it's like the upside down broom that's going around like this, right? It's not this, I'm not playing with it here. Because the axis, you know, the line, what it allows you to do, let go. So instead of hanging on and bracing against gravity, it almost feels at times like you're floating in it. Instead, and someone tried to pin me down a while ago. There's some kind of confirmatory experience, and I you know, squeamish about you know, putting a label on anything. But one thing that I did come up with, that often people start feeling literally lighter, almost like we're, you know, whoa, almost more like we're floating because I'm dancing with this imaginary friend. Ida would say, and these were her words, that that would allow you to let go. Actually, those are my words. She would say, what doing this does, you don't have to brace yourself anymore. Okay. And what that would do, she said, that would awaken what she called evolutionary energies, which is partly the tingling shimmer at the you know, of the body, the awakened soma, and then also the deep chthonic energies, way even deeper in, right? She said it would awaken them. And as long as you keep playing here and you don't, you know, react to it or grab to it, those energies would just start moving through the body, resulting in, this were her words, an evolutionary transformation of consciousness. So so what we've been talking about today, I guess, is my understanding of what she was alluding to. You know, vocabulary, but that's what it was all about for her. The line was in uh, uh, a path to a mystical awakening. It was not the line. Was not a path to just feeling better in my body.
Right, right. Which
But you know, you get work done, does somatic work, and hey, I'm far more functional, right?
so is this the same as like the central channel that we find in Hatha Yoga, Vajrayana practices?
Probably,
That's interesting.
probably.
And then
Are
Tom talks about soma, and he gets this from this Greek word, but it goes also to the Hindu Hatha Vajrayana of Amrita. And a lot of the Vajrayana practices, you imagine like a nectar coming down into the central channel, and then you rest in that kind of rapture or joy of that
Mhm.
experience.
Yeah, absolutely, because
And then you
this letting go is very delicious.
yeah,
It's almost like every breath becomes like a swoon, or like someone's just giving you the most fragrant rose that ever got rosed, and you put it to your mouth, or your nose, and you just take it into every single cell of your body, like you said, Lama Yeshe. It was very cool, and and it just fills up the whole body like a balloon, and it's very delicious. So I sometimes think of, you know, there were the Aryan people, and then the weather changed, and they couldn't stay up north, wherever it was, Russia or wherever they were. And I think one migration goes south and goes uh, oh, they get to the Himalayas and they go way down to the Gangetic Plain in India, right? And another goes off to Greece, maybe. And again, a scholar would probably hammer at me for this, but I think there's probably some truth at that. Now, in the, you know, the Rig Vedas, they talk about soma. I took the elixir of soma and awakened, and I know in the late 60s and 70s, there were a lot of psychedelic researchers that were combing the Himalayan mountains and foothills trying to find, is this a plant? Is it an herb? Is it a mushroom? What is it? My understanding is they came up empty handed. Okay. Going over to Greece, the word soma refers to the awakened experience, of the body, right? And I think the awakened soma in Hindu, the Hindu traditions, the Rig Vedas, it's similar. That something, maybe it is a substance, and like as I said, there's a lot of there are books out there about plant medicine foundations for some of the Hinduism and the Buddhism.
For sure. But even if it is a substance, it's still going to lead to, again, the experience.
Totally, totally, totally. So it's not about I'm just going to take the drug.
Right.
No, let's do this, and let's do these practices that are about awakening. They can be for some people, not for everybody. And that's why I try not to be too didactic,
Right, right.
about that.
We have
But
our Pure Land people.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And hallelujah. Again, I say the Pure Land people would not be interested in what you and I are talking about
They wouldn't
because
need it.
it doesn't work for them.
Yeah, they
Or
don't
it,
need it.
it didn't draw them. It didn't attract to them. Others of us, well, I was a 60s guy. What can I say? Right?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, how are you doing? We've been at this a while.
Yeah, no, this is a beautiful conversation. I'm just
Yeah,
hanging on your every word. So this is
yeah.
wonderful. Maybe we can if you're interested in picking up this again at some point in the future, because
Would love to. I definitely enjoy this. And as I say, I really like to find the somatics people that have really deeply opened into the Dharma.
yeah, me too.
And because I want to believe that this is the future that could make this gorgeous awakening. Oh God, this planet need it. Uh, hey, this is what we have this opportunity as humans on the planet. I came up with a line the other day, life is short. Get the best bang for your buck in every breath you take. Okay, thank you, amigo.
Thank you, friend. Bye bye.
Yeah, lots of love. Bye-bye.